Hello, what we're going to be doing in this video is walking through a Python program that uses a dictionary. So we want to write a program that keeps an employee dictionary keyed on employee ID in a dictionary. So uh, the table shows the initial information of how the dictionary should be initialized. So what we have for our key is employee ID, and then for our value is our name. So after we create that dictionary, then we want to remove Zach Lubin from the dictionary and add two new employees in the dictionary, Pedro and Mary, with their appropriate employee IDs. After we've updated, then what we're going to do is we're going to prompt the user for an employee ID. We're going to check to see if the employee ID is not in the dictionary. Then we'll go ahead and print out a message: an employee with the specified ID does not exist. If the employee is in the dictionary, then we're going to grab the employee's name based on the employee ID that was entered. And then finally, we're going to prompt the user if they would like the employee dictionary printed out. If they answer yes, then we're going to print out the dictionary. If they answer no, we're going to go ahead and end the program. So the first thing we need to do is we need to go ahead and open up a new file in idle. So I'll just go File, New File. And what we're going to do, the first step is to initialize our dictionary. So we will go ahead and type the name of our dictionary, which is employee directory. And then we'll set an equal sign. And then we'll put an opening curly braces. And then what we're going to do is we need to enter the key value pairs. So the first one, we enter the employee ID, M8044, and then we specify a colon, and then we specify the name, Samantha Muse. And then in order to separate your entries in the dictionary, you would go ahead and use a comma. So I will go ahead and add a comma. I will enter my second entry in the dictionary, and that will be Zach Lubin. And then what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to go ahead and pause the video and enter the rest of the employees in the dictionary. Okay, I've gone ahead and I've actually entered the rest of the employees in the dictionary. Again, when you initialize a dictionary, you will use the curly braces, opening and closing curly braces, and that is different from a list where you would go ahead and use square brackets. And the other thing where there's a difference between the list is that in a dictionary, you have key value pairs. So you have a key, a colon, and then you have a value for that key. So we've gone ahead, we've entered our dictionary. So the first thing we want to do is we want to go ahead and remove Zach Lubin from the list. So we can do that by going in and just calling our delete function. And then we would specify the employee dictionary, which is our employee directory. And then within braces, we would go ahead and specify the key for the employee that we want to delete. So Zach's key is L0608. So we would go ahead and delete him from the dictionary now. So the next thing we need to do is we need to go ahead and update the dictionary by adding Pedro and Mary. So we're just going to go ahead and type employee dictionary, employee directory, that is the name of our dictionary. And we're going to call the update command. And what the update command will do is it'll go ahead and add new entries to our dictionary. And we can go ahead and add both of the entries on one line using just calling the command once. So in order to do that, we would go ahead and specify opening parenthesis, then a square bracket, and then the key value pairs in parentheses. So the first one is R2255, and that is for Pedro. Rhoda, and then we would go ahead and close that entry with a parenthesis, and then to separate the two entries, we would add a comma, and then another opening paren, and then what we want to do is add Mary Herrera, which is H2922, and then we would specify her name, which is associated with her ID. And then we need to close that entry out. And then after that, we need to have a closing square bracket. And then we need a closing parenthesis to close out our function call to the update function. So that line should go ahead and add our two entries. So what we need to do next is we need to prompt the user for an employee ID, and we're going to check to see if that employee exists in the dictionary. So we'll just type in employee ID as the name that we're going to save the information to, and we're just going to have an input prompt. Enter an employee ID to search for in the directory. Okay, so after the user enters the prompt, then we're just going to do an if check. So it'll just be if employee ID is in our employee directory, list of keys. So we would just go ahead and specify keys, and then opening and closing parentheses. So what that statement will do is it'll search through our keys in our employee directory to see if it finds a matching key. And if it does, then what we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead and print the employee's name out. So it'll be just employee plus, and then in order to get the employee name, we would use the get function. So it would be our employee directory dot get, and we need to specify the employee ID. And we're just going to add some more information to what we're printing out. Okay, so what we're doing in, if the key is actually in our dictionary, then what we're going to do is we're going to use the get function. And in order to use that, we need to specify the key. And what that will do is that'll go ahead and get the value associated with that key. So what this will return is the name of the employee that matches that key. And then we'll just go ahead and display the key itself. Okay, so I need to backspace here, so we're going to do an else statement next. Otherwise, we're just going to print that an employee with the specified ID does not exist Okay, so that is all we're going to do if the key does not exist. So I will go ahead and backspace. So the final step then is we're going to go ahead and add in just a print statement to separate our inputs and outputs. And what we're going to do is we're going to ask the user if they want to go ahead and display the employee directory. And then we're just going to let the user know what we want them to enter. And I am not going to do any data verification with this. So if they enter a Y, we will display the directory. If they enter anything else, then we will not display the directory. And sorry about that. My phone is actually ringing here. I will go ahead and shut that off. So what we're going to do next is we're going to use a simple little if check. So we're just going to if display is equal to Y, then what we're going to do is we're just going to add in another empty line, and then we're going to print employee directory. And in order to print the employee directory, we can just use another for in loop. So we're just going to go ahead and for key and value in our employee directory dot items. And basically what this will do is this will go ahead and iterate through our employee directory, grabbing both the key and the value, so we can go ahead and print both of those values out. So what we're going to do here is we're just going to print out our employee ID, and let me see here, a couple mistypes here. So we want employee ID with a colon, and then we have our key, and then what we want to do is we want to go ahead and add a tab, and then we will go ahead and specify, print out the name. Okay, so that should be all we need for our program here. So we will go ahead and attempt to run this program. And I will just go ahead and save it as employee directory, and we will click save. And first thing I want us to do now is we want to go ahead and enter employee ID to search for in the directory. So I will just go ahead and enter one of the new employees that we added. So I will just enter R2255, hit enter, and it pulls up Pedro's information. Looks like I need to add a space there, so let me go ahead and add the space because it looks like it's not printing out correctly. And then I will go ahead and hit yes to print out my directory. So basically what we have here is we have Samantha, which is in the directory, Susanna, Jose, Darnell, Santi, Crystal, Pedro, and Mary Herrera. So it looks like all the employees that should be in the directory are in the directory, and Zach Lubin no longer is in our directory after we deleted him from the directory. So basically, that's what I wanted to cover in this video. The other thing that I wanted to let you know is that in our for loop, we do not have to use key and value as the variable name. So what I could have used here is I could have used employee ID, and I could have used name there, and then what I need to do is I just need to update them down below. When you call the dot items, it always knows that the first value in our key value pair will always be the key, and the second value will always be the or the second item will always be the value. So in this way, our first item will be the employee ID, and our second item will be the name. So let me just go ahead and rerun the program here. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and search for Zach in the program. So his ID was L0608 in the directory. Comes out an employee with the specified ID does not exist. And I'm just going to go ahead and hit yes again. And what that shows is that prints out the same directory. So it just lets you know that you do not have to use for the variable names in your for-in statement where you're grabbing each one of the items from your dictionary. You do not have to specify key and value. You can use any variable names for that key value pair. So that's all I wanted to cover in this video. So thanks for listening, and I hope this helps you with the dictionary assignment.